Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to continue the compliment series, and today I really enjoyed how Brother Jake was able to finally call out Myron Gaines of the Fresh and Fit podcast, the Fresh Filth podcast, the Fresh Fitna podcast, because so few people will expose how he consistently doesn't defend Islam and tries to appear neutral. And it's refreshing to see Brother Jake do a quick video. It would be awesome if he could go through so many of the statements and behaviors that Myron promotes. Now, I know we're not supposed to do takfir. I'm not saying to do that. I'm not qualified. But it is quite strange, some of the things that he advocates for. And he's consistently trying to cozy up to like the actual white supremacists. I think Abba and Preach, they've done a good job on kind of highlighting this, which I find to be quite bizarre, because it's a strange thing that some of the people are cozying up to those lot. And I do believe Myron is Sudanese, so I think it's strange that he would try to cozy up to some people who really do believe that eugenics are the way forward for America. Racial eugenics, that is. And that America belongs to the whites. I think that's also part of him trying to branch out in new areas. But in Islam, we're not supposed to be racist and such, because we're told that a non-Arab and a Arab, they're not better than each other. So we have to be careful with how we view race politics and stuff. But I noticed that Brother Jake was one of the few Muslims who was bold enough to actually call out Myron. You have a lot of red pill Muslims, who I won't name, but they make a lot of excuses for Myron. And if you look at all the haram that they promote, and I know doing haram doesn't take you out of the fold, but just the kufr statements, and he really confuses freedom of speech, I'd argue. The fact he has no protective jealousy of the religion really speaks to the level of faith in his heart. And we should be cautious, because some Muslims will like him because of his anti-Israel stances. But he does cozy up to a lot of the Orthodox Christians who really rage against Islam. And we have to be mindful of those who consistently platform people who really rage against Islam. He had on Laura Loomer. He had on Andrew Wilson. So we have to really be careful. Really be careful. And a lot of his show makes Muslim men go to those women's OnlyFans pages. So, the free mixing, the lewdness, how disrespectful he is to women. You can talk to a chicken head, but you have to have a certain level of decor. I have a hot temper, but you have to be mindful, but he does things for really clicks, so it's not really his strategy. But there's been tons of videos that have been critiquing the Fresh and Fit podcast and Myron himself from non-Islamic angles. So I did find it refreshing that Brother Jake had started to open the door towards that, because I think it's important. Brothers get a lot of passes now for what they do, and we have to be careful not to become so loose, but also I understand there's a balance of trying to get people to be more Islamic, but remember, he has to do better, and hopefully brothers can guide him back to the straight path, because he's really failing at Islamic masculinity. Really failing. And I know some people are afraid to call him out because they want to be on a show. They want to be friends with famous people, so they don't step on toes. But we should be united in our love of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Myron said that we have to kind of just not get offended when people mock the Prophet, peace be upon him. But Myron was saying how disgraceful it was that the Jays helped to, the woke liberals and the Jays helped to do the mockery of Jesus, peace be upon him, in the Olympic ceremony that happened in France, where it's a fat Jewish lady, inverting the Last Supper with queers and trans and sodomites and stuff like that. And they had that I believe it was the Sikh guy on the table, which is very strange. He was saying how bad it is that happened, but then he was telling Muslims that they have to leave and go back to the Middle East if they don't just kind of smile at people insulting the Prophet, peace be upon him. Whereas if you look at the slippery slope, which is a fallacy, but it's still true to this day, that once you start to not get strict on behavior codes, things get worse and worse and worse. And so I think that Christians should tell people, hey, if you're not Christian, don't wear the cross. It's not a fashion item. If they did that more often, you wouldn't have so many thugs wearing the Virgin Mary on their sweaters and committing crimes and getting rosary tattoos and committing crimes. If they actually self-policed more, you'd have a lot less gangbangers and drug dealers and pimps rocking Christian iconography. So they were so tolerant and didn't self-police to the point where it diluted the image of what Christianity even is. And then they let the satirists really go at Jesus, peace be upon him. So they failed to honor their religion and protect it from slander. And then they gaslit themselves that it's for their own benefit. Very bizarre. So when Myron is trying to get Muslims to engage in behavior where they will laugh and joke about someone insulting Islam, that is not what we're told to do. You're not supposed to mock your religion. You're not supposed to mock the prophets. You're not supposed to mock the rules of Allah. We have to be very careful. Very careful. It's a very serious matter. But Myron doesn't have the fear of Allah, and so he's reckless. So I applaud Brother Jake for making a stand when I know he's probably going to get a lot of heat from people for doing so. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect Brother Jake, and I hope that he does more videos analyzing the kufr statements of Myron Gaines.